Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into how a brand new movie about a boxing legend has basically kicked off a public fight over memory, money, and loyalty. You've got a flamboyant champion on one side and the family of the man who made him on the other. And yeah, that really gets to the heart of it, right? When a partnership like this creates a legend, who actually owns that story? That's the question at the center of this whole dispute between the family of trainer Brendan Ingle and his most famous student, Prince Naseem Hamed. So, the movie that's kicking all this off is called Giant. It's all about the incredible rise of boxing superstar Prince Naseem Hamed. But instead of just being a celebration, its release has torn open some really old wounds and started a very public battle over history, money, and respect. Okay, to really get what's going on here, we need to know who's who. First, of course, you've got Prince Naseem, Naz, one of the most exciting fighters you'll ever see. Then there's Brendan Ingle, the genius trainer who found him as a little 7-year-old kid. Defending his dad's legacy is his son, Dominic Ingle. And right in the middle of it all is this new film, Giant. So the film comes out, and almost immediately, Nas starts doing interviews. And that's when things really blow up. He brings up two big issues about how the movie was made, and while the Ingle family has a totally different story for both. All right, first up, the whole who knew what, when issue. From what's been reported, Nas claimed he was totally in the dark, that he only found out about this movie when it was basically finished. But Dominic Ingles says, hang on, that's not how it went down. He says the production team did reach out to Nas, but he just wasn't interested in getting involved at the time. And then you've got this whole thing with Sylvester Stallone. Nas went public saying he didn't think the Hollywood legend had anything to do with it. Dominic's response is pretty straightforward. Stallone's production company was key to getting the movie funded in the first place. And hey, his name is literally on the poster. It's a classic he said, they said situation. But you know, the film was really just the spark. The controversy quickly dug up a much older, much deeper wound, a fight over the money Brendan Ingle made as Nas's manager. And this is where it all gets really personal. Now, to get this, you gotta understand a little bit about how boxing works. A manager's fee is totally standard in the sport. The official contracts actually allow for a manager to take up to 25% of a fighter's earnings. So this wasn't some weird made-up deal. And yep, that 25% is the magic number right at the center of all this. Nas has hinted that this fee was a sign of greed, but Dominic Ingles' side of the story is that this number was made crystal clear to every single kid who walked into that gym, Nas included, from day one. And this is where it gets really interesting, how Dominic says his dad taught this lesson. It wasn't buried in some contract. He used a simple analogy. He'd ask a new kid, if you have 4 apples and you give me one, what have you given me? And the kid would say, a quarter. And he used that to make the idea of 25% totally understandable years before anyone was making it done. But get this, according to Dominic, his dad could have actually taken more. A standard deal would be 25% for the manager plus another 10% for the trainer. But he says Brendan just took the 25% and basically rolled the training cost into the management fee. So all of this really leads to a defense of Brendan Ingles' character. For every suggestion that his father was money mad, Dominic paints a picture of a guy who was the complete opposite, someone who cared way more about his community and building character than about getting rich. And Dominic shares this one really powerful story to make his point. He said on a trip to South Africa, Brendan was so affected by the poverty he saw that he just gave away all his brand new clothes, even his expensive shoes, to people who needed them. He came home wearing just a tracksuit. And this really paints a picture of the guy Dominic's describing. We're talking about a millionaire who was seen sweeping the streets in his own neighborhood. He drove regular cars, never moved out of his working-class home, and just kept plowing his money back into the gym to help the next generation of fighters. And look, Dominic argues that the proof is in the pudding, right? After Nas left, the Ingle gym didn't just fall apart. It kept producing world champion after world champion, guys like Johnny Nelson and Kell Brook. He says this shows the focus was always on the fighters, not just on cashing in on one superstar. But look, like any story this intense, it is not black and white. Even with all the public fighting, you can't deny there's this deep, fundamental connection that once existed between these two guys. And in fact, you won't believe this, but in the very same interviews where he's raising all these issues, Nas himself gives his old mentor credit. He says flat out, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for your dad. He acknowledges that Brendan taught him everything, the basics, the footwork, right from when he was 7 years old.
So, what this all comes down to is a story about a really powerful, really complicated, and super personal bond. It was a bond that created a champion, but also broke in a really painful way. And what we're seeing now are just the two conflicting sides of a story that maybe only those two men ever really knew the truth of.
And that's what we're left with, isn't it? This big, unanswered question. When a relationship like this creates a global icon, who gets to write the final chapter? Is it the mentor who laid the foundation? Is it the student who became the star? Or maybe the real truth of their story isn't something anyone owns anymore, but something that was lost the moment they went their separate ways.